What is about to happen will not be your fault. No.
Open your eyes.
What is up, everyone, and welcome back to Into the Westworld. This is our weekly Westworld recap show, and this week we are going to be breaking down Westworld Season 2, Episode number 7, titled, let me pull that up because it's French. It's titled Les Écorchés, which translated means skinned or something along those lines, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. I am one of your hosts, Griffin Schiller, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts, as always, Tyler Tompkins and Zach Pope. Tyler, let everyone know how you're doing.
What's up, guys? I'm excited to talk about this episode of Westworld because I think we can all conclusively agree that this is probably the best episode of the show ever.
100%. Yes, without a doubt. It was so good.
Yeah, really good. I'm excited to talk about this one because there's so much to talk about.
Yes, there is a lot to talk about, and we'll get into that in a bit. But Mr. Zach Pope, let everyone know how you're doing.
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm not taking an L today, so that's the best thing, right, Griffin?
Oh, yes. I've been waiting to bring this up on the show. We won't dive into it too much, but
not too much.
Zach just went out a couple nights ago. I was with him, actually, and he was downing a lot of drinks very quickly. And by the end of the night, a lot of LaCroix, which I'm drinking peach pear LaCroix this episode. So if you're interested, go check out that flavor. But as far as Zach's story, he bought a lot of drinks, and by the end of the night, he was out of money. He was broke, and also probably blacked out because he was throwing up the entirety of the next day. So he had one right. He threw up on one of our friends' car, on my sunglasses, and basically every other place you could imagine. So
sweet, dude. I know my white Vans got fucked up.
Yep, those white Vans.
Yeah,
great job, Zach.
Besides that, I really like this episode, and it is my favorite episode too. I loved it.
Good. Well, there is so much to discuss in here.
So much payoff.
So much payoff. This is episode 7 is the episode of the payoff. If you felt that the show hadn't been giving you anything up until this point, which I don't know why you would feel that way, but I know there are some of those people out there. Hopefully by this episode, you found everything coming together. At least that's how it really was for all of us. I think all of us are a little bit more clear on what's going on in the show, which I really appreciate. I think that's something they did really well this episode, was just actually filling in everyone else what is going on and the trajectory kind of where the show is going to go. So let's start with Ford and Bernard, because that was a huge part of this episode. That's where it started out, essentially. And so we essentially come to the realization that Ford was in that ball that Bernard made, and that he put in his head when he went into the cradle. And through that encounter in the cradle with Ford, we find out a lot of different things. That Delos is testing people. They're testing.
It's a lot of the stuff that we've all been thinking.
Right, exactly. I mean, they're testing the guests and using the host as the control in order to figure out the patterns and personality of the guests, so that they can, I guess, create hosts for the guests and ultimately become immortal, because that was the whole point of Ford's little spiel there, was that people want to live forever, and Westworld gives them that opportunity to. So I just want to get your guys' take on that whole encounter, because it was unreal.
It really was. I love that whole aspect. And again, it's something that we've all been kind of guessing and theorizing. And I remember, I think it was last week, Griffin, we were like, I don't even know about the show anymore. And now it's this week. It's like, hey, I know everything now. It's great. Yeah. And I really liked that whole aspect with Ford and Bernard. It was a nice reunion kind of aspect, getting out from the first season.
So great to see Ford again. Seriously. Yeah,
and I'm glad it wasn't just a small little thing with Anthony Hopkins. No, it was he's back into the show. And
he is. Yeah.
And the other thing it opened up is showing why Bernard's so weirded out.
Yeah,
further timeline. So now it makes sense that Anthony Hopkins is in him.
Yeah, it's basically a battle for the consciousness of Bernard, which, by the way, I feel so bad for this guy as a character. It's he does not catch a break at all.
No,
and by the end of this episode, he is just down the hole even further.
Well, especially when he's pick up the gun.
Yeah, it's almost like the movie Upgrade, sorta.
Yeah,
I can
which
turn
I
off
haven't
some-
seen. But
Yeah,
it is upgrade. That's what I was thinking, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, because he tells them something like along the lines, I can make you not feel what you're about to do, and he just like kills everyone. I like to. I mean, it's kind of going off of what Zach said. I just like how this episode's like a direct response to what we got at the end of episode 6. Like this was perfect. I got way more than I thought we were gonna get.
Yeah. Well,
with him and everything else.
No, exactly. And the other thing is just there was never a dull moment. Like, and it blended the thinking man's aspect with the action aspect because, you know, and every scene served a purpose, which is what I love. There were no like real moments where it was just like kind of characters interacting for the sake of characters interacting.
It all came together perfectly.
Everything came together this episode. And I do want to just quickly give a shout out to Jeffrey Wright, who gives probably the best performance of the season in this episode. If he's not nominated for an Emmy for his performance in this episode, I will be so pissed off. He is an incredible talent in this episode.
I want to say one more thing. I love when Hopkins quotes I don't think God rested on the seventh day.
Oh my god, that was
dude, that whole monologue was like, that's some stuff you learn in like film school and acting school, and you remember that and give it, dude. It was great. It kind of redeems him from his Twitter stunts that he was doing.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, those are gold.
Those Twitter stunts are ridiculous.
But how about that? Yeah, but how about that other moment where you know, they kind of did this in the trailer for this week's episode, but when it's just that slow-mo of the host and the guests killing each other, and Ford is giving that speech, just playing the music. I forget that piece, but it's just like that was one of the moments where I genuinely got chills. And Tyler, what did you think about that?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's all really good, but I forgot about that monologue though, man. That monologue, one of my favorite parts of the entire episode.
Dude, the whole episode had moments. Like each and every character moment in here was great. I mean, you jump to William and Maeve to Dolores and Lee, fucking Teddy. Yeah. Holy fuck, dude. Everyone's great in here.
Right. And my new nickname for Teddy is actually the Terminator now.
Yeah. Dude, that scene where he's like just hammering on that guy. Oh my, that was probably like top 3 scenes of the episode.
No,
it's just so much.
It was so good. That's the next thing I want to move on to, and that's the next big moment was Dolores storming the control room.
Dude, it was so badass. And
oh my god,
the cradle. They did. That was a nice bait and switch there. They kind of were like, oh, they want to steal their backup so that they don't have to worry about, you know, dying or anything like that. But no. They want to blow it up so they can, you know, get their free will, get their independence, because like Dolores was saying, the cradle is what's chaining them down to this park. It's limiting them, knowing that they can, you know, come back, and also that their lives are there, that the creators of the park designed for them. So it was just like kind of cool how she flipped that on them. And that was a great part. I want to say that, and now it kind of gets rid of that worry where I was like, well, like if Teddy dies, like is he really dead? Is he not? But now it's like if whoever dies, like that it seems
that's
like
pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would
that's what I assumed from the cradle. Yeah. And I think that was something nice that like Jonathan Nolan kind of wrote into there. Like, I'm sure like when they're writing it, they're like, yeah, this could be an issue. People are gonna be like, well, you can just bring them back.
That's what I've been thinking the whole season is like, oh, well, if they die, they, you know, it doesn't really mean anything. But now I guess.
Right.
Which was a nice thing.
Yeah. And that's been, I think, for some of the criticisms we've seen of the show have been primarily, oh, well, what are the stakes if they can just like come back to life? And that was a huge moment, just them getting rid of that, knowing that if they die, they're more than likely going to die. And you know what a heartbreaking scene where Dolores has to cut open her father's head to get the
it was nice dialogue going back to the first season as well with them again. And it all tied together perfectly. That was a fantastic scene. Everyone gave like I think their best performance.
Dude,
like,
you know who?
Some of them,
I also really liked. I had to look up her name, Clementine.
Yeah,
I don't really remember her too. I mean, I kind of remember a little bit, but she was really good in this episode too.
Yeah, she's a badass.
Yeah, she is. Like this
kind of like Dolores School.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, I mean, like this season,
but she's gone.
You know, straight faced and just kind of like the female Terminator version, to like you know Teddy's Terminator, but yeah, that whole aspect was really cool. And the other thing that I liked was Dolores's confrontation with Hale because I feel like Hale got a dose of her own medicine there, because I really hated her this episode. Like,
I did
turned into
too.
such
But it's nice that they're actually giving Tessa Thompson something else to do. Like, I feel like they've kind of like put her on the back burner ever since they introduced her, and she's a fantastic actress. But this is like, I feel like the most that she's actually gotten to do, and we've actually seen more of this character, especially when she's threatening Stubbs. Is that his name?
Is that the Hemsworth?
Yeah. It was nice to like kind of get more of that, and then especially like now that they all know that Bernard is a host. Like that was great going back to there too, when they find all the other Bernard hosts, and then that was great. All the skeletons in the closet. That was that was just a great like line to set up the entire episode, because that was basically what the whole episode was dealing with, was skeletons in the closet. And I think the best example of that, and this is a great segue by me, is going into Maeve and William, their encounter there. Dude, when I saw them getting when William pulled up to that area, I was like, oh fuck, this is gonna go right back to where we saw those flashbacks.
And you know, for a brief second there, I was like, is William a host? Because this is the same trajectory that he's been on before. But then as the scene played out, you realize it's just like he was sent there because he thought it was part of Ford's story, and he's like talking to Maeve, thinking that's Ford speaking through her.
He's going crazy. He's going crazy.
He is just like gone off the rails with obsession for completing Ford's story.
Yeah, and I thought it was cool how like when I don't remember the guy's name that's always partnered with William, but it like Maeve couldn't control Maeve couldn't control Lawrence, so she like literally just not tricked him, but pretty much was like, why are you even with this piece of shit? And then he started remembering everything.
The cool thing was, though, that like when she tried to take control of him, he wasn't it didn't work on him. So that was a nice little hint there that it can't work on everyone, only those who have free will. So it kind of like nerfed her power a little bit, which I liked, because in
that was a complaint that you had.
Right. That was a complaint that I had, was I was worried that she just might be a little too overpowered. And I think in this episode, it showed that when they have free will, they're not going to be able to just be controlled by Maeve.
But I love that. I thought William was going to bite it.
He was a dude.
Me too. I think maybe this too. His daughter might come into play here pretty soon.
Yeah, she's gonna have to, because when he was getting shot, I was like, holy fuck, they're gonna kill him off.
And I was thinking, this is where Maeve versus the daughter or something is gonna happen.
Yeah, I thought his daughter was gonna come in too. That would have made sense.
So do you think one of them are gonna die, or do you think they're both gonna get saved? I think Lee's gonna end up saving Maeve.
Maeve's not gonna die. Maeve was going to die. It would have been this episode. I don't think she's going to die. And I'll tell you why, because they've planted the seeds for an ideological war between Dolores and Maeve. Dolores has no compassion. She was like, oh, that little string that they're holding you, that they're pulling you by every chance, that with her daughter, she's like, no, that's not real. Essentially,
dude, Dolores is like, I don't give a fuck. She is
and then Maeve's liking her more and more, man.
Oh, and then I like when Maeve made the comment about Teddy. Like,
oh my God, she's like, well, you changed him. It's like, how are you no different or something like that? Just it's so interesting, the ideological difference between both of them wanting to be free thinkers and independent, but ultimately Maeve has compassion. I mean, look, she didn't kill Lee. I mean, she humiliated him, but he deserved it. But they've grown to have this connection, to have a bond. And I love that. I love that those two are getting a lot of screen time together, because there's definitely there's a connection there that I think that's going to play a big part later down the road.
Well, yeah. And it looks like everyone's kind of going to this valley of beyond. Like, that's where it seems like everything is just getting pushed out. And that by the end of the season, that's where it's going to end up at. So
let me ask you this, both of you guys, do you think that is where the first episode of the season ended? Is in the valley where everyone's in the water? Because that's what it looks like to me. Right, I know. I'm telling you, they haven't played their card on that one yet.
It has to be. It has to be. Yeah, it has to be.
But like, it looks like a majority of Dolores's army is dead in that water.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're gonna have to take a hit one of these encounters, because they're almost invincible, but
Dude, I loved how they did the switcheroo, how they piled up all the dead human bodies.
Yeah, let's talk about the action.
Oh my fucking god, dude! Some of the best action like I've seen in like this show and like some of on HBO. Like this reminded me of like Game of Thrones when they had that one big action set piece per season. This was theirs, and
this was one. Yeah.
Well, for all I know, maybe they'll have another one later this season. But I love like the switcheroo because they go up and they're like, "Wait, this is our group of people," and then just. And it was nice kind of thing because that's what they do to their bodies. Like when they're just dead, they just fucking pile them up and then pull them away and start fixing them.
Yeah. It was
lots of symbolisms, lots of it.
Oh, seriously. Yeah. This episode was just.
Well, it's like the perfect episode because it has enough like philosophical stuff in it, but also enough perfect energy.
This is a perfect blend, man. I wish every episode was like this.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah. I mean, it was perfect.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, let's get your take on the action, man, because I know you liked it, but like, were there moments that you liked more than others, or?
Yeah, well, like I said, Clementine, man, I like seeing her go crazy. that was some of my favorite moments. But
her eyes like have that dead giveaway thing for it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, and it's just again, I just wish. I know y'all like the more philosophical episodes, but this felt.
It's perfect.
It just felt normal. I don't know. It's perfect. You know what I mean? Because it just wasn't really out there. It almost didn't feel like something Jonathan Nolan would do.
Oh, really? See, this
I thought it was
probably more Jonathan Nolan than anything else we've seen this season, to be honest.
Well, yeah.
I always think whenever I think Jonathan Nolan, I always think the more like philosophical stuff, just because he did like Interstellar and co-wrote. Which was out there, that was
Well, it's like I told you guys, like I had my friend Cody watch, like he's never seen a single episode of Westworld, and he was like blown away by how great this episode was. Like, and even though he like didn't really understand most things, he was like, this makes me want to go and watch the rest to see what's been going on, because he said like, and then I was like, do you know who makes this show? It's one of the Nolan brothers. He's like, really? He's like, I felt like it was a Nolan-esque thing. So there's so much greatness to this episode, and it just paves the way to like everything that the first few episodes built up we saw in this episode. And there are still some things, but for once I'm like, I know what's going on, I just don't know where it's gonna go. Yeah,
that's the thing. The show actually, because everyone has kind of come together, so they had those side, they weren't really side, but they were like character storylines that like, so we had like Maeve going in one direction, Dolores going in one, Bernard going in another. They've all kind of converged, and we have one direct path towards the conclusion of the season, which is going to be what I assume to be like the Beyond the Valley type stuff. So that's really nice that we kind of all like everything has kind of come together, and we have somewhat of an idea of where the show is going,
which is nice. I appreciate that for once. But
I think that this is going to be one of those episodes that, much like Game of Thrones is the Red Wedding or something like that, this is going to be one of those episodes that people go back to and they're like, listen, if you want to know what Westworld is about and you want to get a taste for how incredible this show is, go watch this episode, if nothing else.
Well, and I think this will probably end up being like, once the Westworld's all said and done and however many seasons they do, I think we've said like 5 or so that they plan on doing. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. Like I didn't really get into Game of Thrones till the Red Wedding. The Red Wedding's the episode that was like, I'm binging the rest of the show.
Right.
I think this will be that episode. It's like, I promise you'll get into it. Just get to this episode, and from there
you'll be fine. And because like the show keeps you hooked, but this episode it's payoff. It's payoff from the first season. It's payoff for the second season. And it just leads to where this nice conclusion is going to go. Like, I literally cannot wait till next week. Like, more than ever.
Very interesting, though, because, I mean, we'll dive into this in our preview episode, but it's like we're following like a character we've never followed before.
Yeah.
In an adventure we've never followed before. So that'll be very interesting.
And it has to be. It's going to tie in some way big. To place it right after this episode, it's strategic placing for a reason,
right? And I'll get into that in the preview episode, how I think it's going to tie in. But overall, do you guys have any closing thoughts on this? Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I was reading an article before this, and I can't remember where it was from, but the guy said basically this episode was another reason it was really good is because this is really the first time we've seen all of the big characters go against each other.
Yes.
You have like Bernard versus Charlotte versus Dolores, and
well, it's like all the timelines finally intersected for once.
Yeah, because it really hasn't happened before like this.
No.
ever throughout the entire show. So
The only other thing I wanted to talk about was, can we mention a little bit more of Teddy? Like, damn, can we, like, I
what's
know
his
we already,
fate? What's his
sure.
fate?
Yeah, absolutely.
we briefly like talked about how he beat the shit out of that guy, but seriously, one of the best scenes, like
Marsden, dude, James Marsden. This is what I've been
James
doing ever
Marsden,
since
man.
the beginning of the
He's so
show.
this is what he
Yeah.
was created to do. Fuck Cyclops from X-Men. This is what he needs. This, and then he needs to sponsor LaCroix for us.
He
But-
needs to be a LaCroix sponsor.
Yeah, the spokesperson. Is he dying though? Is he going to be dead?
No, actually, I've kind of.
I hope
I've
not.
gotten rid of that.
I hope
don't
not
think
either.
It'll happen, dude.
Even though, because the preview, we see the future and we obviously see he's
Yeah.
dead, but I feel like if they're gonna kill a character off, it's gonna be shocking. Like, it's gonna be shocking.
I hope
for
it is.
us.
I hope it is.
I'm still thinking it's going to be William. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah,
and maybe
yeah.
there'll be more than one major death this season. I wouldn't put it past them.
Charlotte Hale.
Well, I think that's
I thought
only
she
a
was
matter
going
of
to
time.
die in this episode.
I did too.
With
Yeah, and the other
Dolores.
thing is, where's is it Elsie? Is that her name? Where's she at?
Yeah.
Where'd she go?
Yeah,
Great
she the one
question. She's going after I mean, Bernard sent her to the valley.
didn't she say something like,
yeah.
"I'm going back to like nursing school after this" or something?
Yeah.
like that?
Dental school. Yeah,
Dental
that was a
school,
great
yeah.
line.
That was a great
'Cause
call.
I agree with her.
I will say one thing, and that just reminded me of the cradle. But I will say one thing, and while it was very poetic, it kind of took me out of it a little bit. If I had one critique for the episode, it was the guy when he was seduced by that one host.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the first time in the series that I felt someone was genuinely dumb in a decision making.
No, what was
moment.
it? When me and Cody were watching it, I was like, he could have just shot her from
Exactly.
like up there, and then the cradle would still be there. So
Right.
it's
Yeah.
literally all this is everything's fault is because of this one man.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
sense.
And it was, I mean, I get it. I got what they were like going for in that moment. Like, oh, you designed us to be desirable, irresistible. So
It just didn't play off right.
It just felt like a really stupid move by a guy who had up until that point been very cocky, but had been doing his job essentially.
I feel like it was probably better written than like when they filmed it. It was
Yeah,
probably
the
came off
delivery.
like and I think that's how it was, because sometimes things look better on paper than they do on the screen when it goes up, and maybe that's just the issue with that part. But I mean, yeah, no, I'm with you on that. That was the one part I was like, okay, really, you're gonna be that stupid?
Yeah, that was just really. I mean, honest to God, like that was really the only moment out of this like damn near perfect episode. It just like it left me so satisfied, so excited, gave me chills in certain moments. I am loving the Ford and Bernard
Yes.
battle for the consciousness of Bernard. And then, you know, finding out a little bit more about Bernard's creation is always great. And then the ideological war between Maeve and Dolores, I think that's going to be a huge factor in season 3. I really think they're going to play on that.
They're bringing that more.
Yeah. That's another reason why I don't think Maeve is going to die. But
Do you think Maeve's gonna get her daughter back by the end of the season?
maybe.
Because I feel like, what is it? There's 3 episodes left. So
Yeah.
If she doesn't, that would make it more interesting against Dolores.
yeah,
Right.
She'd be even more ruthless, but I don't know.
So here's the thing. If she doesn't, I don't want them to take her character down the path of Dolores, because that's what makes Maeve unique. And
Yes,
that's
she's
what,
similar.
well, they both are using
She's
their
like-
free will for different purposes. in a
Exactly.
sense.
yeah.
Maeve wants a real life, and Dolores just wants to kill everyone, pretty much.
Right. Yeah. She's on like a revenge path
And which is cool. And I kind of hope, this is where I kind of hope they take Maeve's storyline, is wherever she ends up with like her and Dolores. I do hope that like next season we don't go into like, okay, let's find another journey to get your daughter back. Like, no, I kind of want her to take her daughter into the real world. Like, I think out of all these characters, Maeve will probably be the first character to actually go and do like the Ex Machina type thing. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
go into the real world, like
Yeah.
out of all these people. And then probably Dolores next, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, for sure. Well, and especially how they were using her to test, you know, like Bernard and stuff like that. She's like more sentient than
Yeah.
probably anyone else in the park aside from Maeve.
Yeah, I also love that little flashback of when you see her like kind of all robotic design.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was just awesome, like cinematography on that scene. The whole show.
seriously.
I mean, the cinematography, that everything's great. The fucking amazing show, honestly.
Seriously. Yeah, absolutely. So let's give our closing thoughts. I think I kind of did a little bit there. So Tyler, let's just hear your closing thoughts on the show before we close it out.
Yeah. Well, closing thoughts on the podcast. Sometimes it's hard to be like a co-host on here, because I love listening to to the back and forth between you and Zach. Just like this show is so much fun to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you said, it was a huge payoff. I don't think any other episode this season will beat it, except maybe the finale. But I don't even know then. And I'm scared for Teddy. I'm scared. That's all I care about, man. I just gotta see what happens to Teddy. Yeah. I'm so scared.
James Marsden, we love you.
Yeah, I don't so much. I'm telling you, man, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's gonna be around.
They're building his character way too much.
Yeah. He needs to go into the real world. I want to see him in the real world.
Fuck, you want him to start killing everyone? Everyone. Yeah, exactly. Turns into a horror film.
Oh my!
It's been off that shit.
Yeah, for real. All right, Zach, what are your closing thoughts?
I love it. Like I said, I think we all agree that this will pretty much be the episode that if you're not hooked on Westworld yet, this will be the episode. Yep, I'm hooked on it. It's just so creative and so great. The show's so well done, and it was just a perfect mix of everything from Westworld season 1 and more into season 2, and it was great. The Bernard and Arnold or Bernard and Hopkins stuff, or Bernard and Ford stuff that's perfect. And then I'm with you, Teddy, Maeve, Dolores. I need more of that. And man, I can't wait to talk about the preview, because next week's episode's just something else.
Very, very interesting for next week's episode. So there you go. Listen to our preview on the podcast feed. But yeah, overall, best episode of the series so far, best episode of the season. I love the Ford Bernard dynamic. If Jeffrey Wright doesn't get an Emmy nomination or any sort of other nomination, Golden Globe, it'll be an incredible disservice to the man.
Yeah, he'll just end up losing to Bill Hader for Barry, but whatever.
I don't know, man. This Jeffrey,
okay.
No, he's so good, dude. He's
an incredible talent. But anyways, that's gonna do it for this week's episode of Into the Westworld, sponsored by Peach Pear LaCroix. If you're a fan, go check it out. No, this is not really a sponsored show, but
we want it though. We want it. LaCroix.
LaCroix sponsorship.
Really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you to my
show.
Yeah, right. Thank you to my two co-hosts for joining me as always. Mr. Zach Pope, where can everyone find you?
You guys can find me either on downtown LA streets throwing up.
That is 3:30 in the morning at Denny's. That is not a lie.
Or you guys can find me on Twitter at Pope the King, on YouTube as well as Zach Pope Reviews. Tons of great movies coming out, guys. Go check out Hereditary, please, please, please. And also, if for some reason you're not watching Westworld yet and you're watching this, you're fucking weird. But watch Westworld. That's a pretty cool show too. Yeah.
And Mr. Tyler Tompkins, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram by searching Tyler Tompkins. And I kind of want to go to Denny's at 3:30 now to check this out. So I guess you can find me there too next time.
We'll find Tyler, Zach, and I at a random Denny's in downtown Los Angeles.
Hey, we can do our own Jedi Council
in the morning. Yes, absolutely.
We'll talk about how L3 is a fantastic robot.
Oh, let's not dive into that now. Let's get away from that. Well, anyways, before I give you my Twitter handle, just be sure to rate and review this podcast on the podcast feed on either iTunes or iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to this show. It really helps us out, and we love to hear feedback from you all. So be sure to just head on over to one of those platforms and give us a rating and a review. We would love you. And also be sure to subscribe to the Men vs. Movies YouTube channel for more movie and television related content, more podcasts such as this one. And if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right. And until next week, guys, take care.